and welcome to Off the Shelf with Christine and Katie, where we share with you our recommendations for books to help you find your next read or to build your TBR, to be read list for the future. This month, we wanted to share with you some debut novels from last year and this year. Maybe you have read everything by your favorite author, or you're just looking for something different to try, different from your usual read. So why not give the new author a chance? You just might find a new favorite. Now, these titles have created quite a buzz on Goodreads, Book Riot, BookBub, Kirkus, Guardian, Bustle, and the Forbes list.
Pretty much everywhere.
We've read some of them we're looking forward to reading. So we hope you enjoy them. Let's get started. We're going to start off with our 2020 debuts. And Katie?
All right, I'll start us off rather. So the first one we're going to recommend as a debut author is Natalie Jenner, who wrote the Jane Austen Society. Just after the Second World War, in the small English village of Chawton, if I'm butchering that, I apologize, an unusual but like-minded group of people band together to attempt something remarkable. 150 years ago, Chawton was the final home of Jane Austen, one of England's finest novelists. Now it's home to a few distant relatives and their diminishing estate. With the last bit of Jane Austen's legacy threatened, a group of different individuals come together to preserve both Jane Austen's home and her legacy. Well, that does sound pretty cool. And I don't actually really care much about Jane Austen, so.
It's a little bit of historical fiction, a little bit about famous authors.
Yeah, and it's fiction, right?
It's fiction.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one we're going to recommend is The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Dare. Sorry if I'm butchering. Last names are hard. Aduni is a 14-year-old Nigerian girl who is trapped in a life of servitude, but determined to get an education so she can escape, speak for herself, and choose her own future. To get a loudening voice, Aduni's father sells her to be the third wife of a local man who is eager for her to bear him a son and heir. Aduni runs away to the city where she finds the only other option before her is servitude to a wealthy family. Circumstances might muffle her voice for a time, but they cannot mute it. This has been called a powerful and emotional debut novel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this kind of reminds me of Addie a little bit. Addie LaRue.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not read that one. I'm thinking of adding it to my list, which you'll find it's getting quite large.
I wish this description had described more what the loudening voice means.
Loudening voice means to learn to speak for herself.
Oh, that's what I thought, but loudening voice is an odd term.
Yes,
so
it was a term her mom told her, that if you have a loudening voice, you are speaking for yourself. You are not under the control of others. So I thought that was rather interesting.
That's interesting.
The next on our list is Darling Rose Gold, and this is a debut novel by Stephanie Roble.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so for the first 18 years of her life, Rose Gold Watts believed she was seriously ill and allergic to everything. She required a wheelchair, spent most of her time in and out of hospitals. Neighbors tried to help. They held fundraisers, offered emotional support, but even after all the doctor visits and surgeries, no one could quite determine what was wrong. Turns out her mom, Patty Watts, was a pretty good liar. There really was nothing wrong with her.
My God.
After serving 5 years in prison, Patty is released and begs her daughter to take her in, insisting all she wants is to reconcile their differences. She claims to have forgiven Rose Gold for turning her in and testifying against her. But Rose Gold knows her mother. She always settles the score. But Rose Gold is also no longer her weak little child, and she's waited a long time for her mother to come home. This is a fast-paced, page-turning thriller that will keep you guessing until the very end, or so they say. I have not read it, but I definitely kind of found it very intriguing.
Yeah, and I've heard this topic before. There was a teen novel, I forget the name off the top of my head, that had a similar premise.
Yes.
There was actually like a real life case that surrounded like Munchausen's, but like towards her daughter. So this is reminding me of
this
that.
is fiction. This is not based
it's not
on a true story, but
it's reminding me of that.
Yes. The next one we have is by Frances Cha. I hope I said that right. Cha. If I Had Your Face. Set in contemporary Seoul, Korea, this story is about 4 young women making their way in a world defined by impossible standards of beauty, after-hours room salons catering to wealthy men, ruthless social hierarchies, and K-pop mania.
Okay, we're here.
Together, their stories tell a gripping tale that's seemingly unfamiliar, yet unmistakably universal in the way that their tentative friendships may have to be their saving grace. So this is a women's fiction based on friendships.
Yeah. I love the K-pop reference.
I know.
Okay, and another last name for me to butcher is the debut novel of Saint X by Alex Schlatkin.
I'm going to say it's Shatkin.
Shotkin. I'm like, my German accent came out. So this buzzy debut features Claire, who was only 7 years old when her college-age sister Allison was murdered while the family was vacationing in the Caribbean at a resort called Saint X. 2 local men are arrested, but the evidence is slim, and the men are later released. The story turns into a national tabloid news, a lurid mystery that will go unsolved. Years later, Claire is living and working in New York City and encounters Clive Richardson, a suspect in Allison's death. She begins to follow him, hoping he will spill information about what really happened to her sister.
Yes. Now, this is a fictional book, but it does have some overtones of real life events that have happened in Aruba with the missing. I forget her name. But
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
They do not bill it as a true crime mystery,
but it kind of is.
I think there's some elements of true crime mystery, but I think you're also going to learn a lot more about Claire and what the emotional.
I see. So it focused mainly on the sister.
And her reaction and how she lived with what happened to her sister. But I'm interested to see what kind of mystery elements this book may have.
Interesting. And the next one we want to recommend is one we've recommended to the library before, but not on this platform before, is The Ghost of Harvard by Francesca Cettarella. And it's the daughter of Lisa Scottolini. For those of you who read mystery or thrillers, you'll recognize her name. And you've read this before as well. So we'll delve into that a little bit more later. But the description of the book is Caddy arrives on Harvard's campus searching for answers, and her brother, a schizophrenic genius who leapt from his dorm window the year before. She is driven to know why Eric killed himself and begins to investigate what happened. Soon, her prying turns up clues that grows increasingly sinister. Dun, dun, dun. Caddy then begins to hear voices herself, 3 ghosts that walk the halls of Harvard, each from a different era of American history. That's when the panic sets in. Does she share Eric's illness, or are these voices real? And if she listens to these ghosts, will they lead her to her brother and the truth, or will they lead down a path to her own destruction? Part ghost story, part mystery thriller, and definitely full of twists.
Yes. I did find it to be a very compelling mystery. I love to try to guess the endings of mysteries. And this one really had me guessing almost up to the very end. I love the ghost element to it. I won't give too much away about that, but that was very interesting. And her whole path of, am I really hearing them, or are they not, or what's really going on? I won't tell you which it is until you read the book.
Wow.
I did want to mention too, I listened and read this book. It's an excellent audiobook.
Okay.
And we do have it available on her platform.
Oh, nice. So this should be easy to get out.
Yes. So next we're coming on My Dark Vanessa, the debut novel by Kate Elizabeth Russell. And this book has been read by Katie. So here we go. 2000. Bright, ambitious, and yearning for adulthood, 15-year-old Vanessa becomes entangled in an affair with Jacob Strain, her magnetic 42-year-old English teacher. Fast forward 2017. Amid the rising wave of allegations against powerful men, a reckoning is coming due. Strain has been accused of sexual abuse by a former student, and now Vanessa suddenly finds herself facing an impossible choice: to remain silent, firm in her belief that her teenage self willingly engaged in this relationship, or to redefine herself and the events of her past. It has been called a gut-wrenching debut, and I think you had some things to say about that.
Yes, so I wanted to comment. So I will say that this book is very hard to read, but if you can get through it, and obviously the obvious trigger warnings from reading the description, it does mention sexual assault, but I feel like it's so worth it to read because you see how she absorbs this information, because it starts when she's a young girl, and it honestly like goes into the rest of her life, and it's based on the author's true experiences. So, there's a personal element to it, but it is very interesting. And I will say it does change you. So if you can obviously get through some of the harsh topics, I will say this is a definite must read. You can't let this one sleep.
I will say too, I did read in some reviews that she did draw from her own experiences
Right.
as a child. So I guess that's why it rings true.
Yeah,
and it is so
yeah. And
haunting.
it came around the whole Me Too movement
Yes.
era thing, and they do comment that in the book and how it affects people who are in that scenario and society. So I do recommend it. It's a good read.
Okay. Next, we come up on a book we have recommended before in terms of sequels coming out this year, but the original debut novel by Alki Joshi is The Henna Artist. And I did read this book. This is escaping from an abusive marriage. 17-year-old Lakshmi makes her way alone to the vibrant 1950s city of Jaipur, where she becomes the most highly requested henna artist and confidant to the wealthy women of the upper class. She must tread carefully to avoid the jealous gossips who could ruin her reputation and her livelihood. But as she pursues her dreams of an independent life, she is startled one day when she's confronted by her husband, who has tracked her down after all these years and brings along her high-spirited sister that she did not know she had. Suddenly, the caution that she has carefully cultivated as protection is threatened. Now, the sequel to this book was one of the most highly anticipated books to come out this year. The Secret Keeper of Jaipur was released in June. Both of these historical fiction novels, they're also great audios. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to them because hearing some of the words spoken correctly in the native tongue was very enjoyable for me. And both are available in our Hoopla account, which is great.
Speaking of the names, I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a name and thought it pronounced one way, and then you hear it and you have to readjust.
And readjust, exactly.
Yep. Oh.
Okay.
All right, and the next debut author we want to recommend, her book is Conjuring Women by Afia Akatora. And you know, you tell me how to pronounce these things, but you don't put them for her. I'm just saying. And Christine has read this.
Oh, this one's on my list.
Oh, it's on your TBR.
Yes.
Okay. So the description is like her mother, Rue is an all-knowing midwife, healer, conjurer of curses on the plantation of Mars Charles. Moving back and forth in between the years before and after the Civil War, this novel tells the story of Rue, the family she cares for, and the mysteries and secrets she knows about the plantation's owner's daughter, Farina. At the heart of this story is the intimate bonds and transgressions among people and across racial divides, both during slavery and freedom time.
And I'm thinking to myself, you know, it looks like we had a little bit of witchcraft. We got
I was going to say,
it
brings up Lost Apothecary vibes a little bit.
Absolutely.
Just a little bit. Like,
so,
obviously it's not the same, but there's a little bit of vibes there.
Why I must read.
Because we love it. And we'll be talking about that later.
Yes.
So the next book that we want to recommend is The Mountains Sing by Win Feng Wei Mai. And this is on your TBR list as well. And I've seen it all throughout the library. And it is the multi-generational tale of the Tran family set against a backdrop of the Vietnam War. Tran Deulan, who was born in 1920, was forced to flee her family farm with her 6 children during the land reform as the communist government rose in the north. Years later in Hanoi, her young granddaughter, Harong, comes of age as her parents and uncles head down the Ho Chi Minh Trail to fight in a conflict that will tear not just her beloved country, but her family apart. Epic family saga reminiscent of Min Jin Lee's Pachinko or Ye Gassi's Homegoing. This debut novel brings to life the human cost of conflict from the point of view of the Vietnamese people themselves. This is Wing Feng Wei Ma's a celebrated Vietnamese poet, her first novel in English. And I am sorry if I butchered any of those names.
That's good. All right. Basically, this is on my TBR because I very thoroughly enjoyed Pachinko and Homecoming.
Yes.
Or Homegoing, excuse me. And I just, when I heard that it was very similar to that, but then now this one takes place in Vietnam as opposed to Korea. And the other one was Africa, I believe. I'm in.
I know Pachinko also, on another topic, got a lot of awards, and we do have several of those books. So if you liked that, you'll probably like this.
Yeah. So, and it just covers parts of history that I just want to learn more about. And that's what I liked.
Hey.
All right. We're going on to The Lovely City by Louise Hare. I got a nice easy one. London, 1950. With the war over and London still rebuilding, jazz musician Lowry Matthews has answered England's call for labor. He arrives from Jamaica, rented a tiny room in South London, and he's fallen in love with the girl next door. Playing in a Soho jazz club by night and a postman by day, Lowry has poured his heart into his new home, and it's alive with possibility. Until one morning, he makes a terrible discovery. The local community rallies, fingers of blame point at those who were recently welcomed with open arms. And before long, London's newest arrivals have become the prime suspects in a tragedy that threatens to tear the city apart. Romance, history, intrigue, and mystery all come together in this debut novel. It's, like I said, it's getting a lot of buzz about how these immigrants were asked to come and help out with the labor shortage. And then when this tragedy occurs, they were very quick to turn around and say, had it be you, couldn't have been us who've been here.
Right.
So that sounds very interesting. I love the title of this next one, so it's on my list. To Have and to Hoax by Martha Waters. It's in this fresh and hilarious historical rom-com. An estranged husband and wife in Regency England feign accidents and illness in an attempt to gain attention and maybe just win each other back in the process. This is a historical romance fiction full of humor as well. I love the title, and I do like humorous stories. Basically, they go back and forth pretending one's hurt. They'll know I'm going to get back. No, I'm more hurt. And eventually they're supposed to
seem like a feisty couple.
Get back together.
Yeah.
And carrying on with our English author themes.
Author trend here.
Yes.
So the next one we have here is Bronte's Mistress by Finola Austen. This debut novel explores a scandalous love affair between Branwell Bronte and Lydia Robinson, giving voice to the woman allegedly corrupt her son's innocent tutor and brought down the entire Bronte family. Interesting. I didn't know that. In 1843, Lydia was the mistress of Thorpe Greenhill, mourning the loss of her mother and daughter. With her teenage daughters rebelling, her mother-in-law scrutinizing her every move, and a marriage grown cold, Lydia is yearning for something more. That changes with the arrival of her son's tutor, Branwell Bronte, brother of her daughter's governess. Sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah, it's her daughter's governess.
Oh, it's her daughter's governess.
Yes.
Okay, my bad. Miss Anne Bronte and those other writerly sisters. Who writes this? Charlotte and Emily. Handsome and uninhibited by social conventions, he's also 25 to her 43. Ooh. Mrs. Robinson?
Yeah.
But Lydia's new taste of passion comes with consequences as servants whispered rumors of their passionate relationship reach all three protective Bronte sisters. Soon it falls on Lydia to save not just her reputation, but her way of life before those clever girls reveal all her secrets in their novels.
Yeah, so this is a part of the Bronte sisters' history I knew nothing about. This is a historical fiction. So it is based on an affair that their brother had with a much older woman.
This is an actual affair?
The affair is true.
Okay.
But this is fiction.
Got it.
So it does. I'm kind of curious to read it to see what novels they might have drawn from for some of the secrets that they want to expose. So it sounded like something a little interesting.
Interesting. I like this.
Now, before we get on to our 2021 debut authors, we just wanted to mention the new library app that is available both for Androids and iPhones. Now, with this app, not only can you access our catalog, you can put your books on hold, you can check your account, you can renew and check out items, but you can also access our book recommendations page under the ebook section of the app. There you will find even more recommendations and links to our off-the-shelf book lists, as well as being able to submit a request for a more personalized recommendation. It's kind of like having the library at your fingertips whenever you want it.
And before we go on to the 2021 debuts, I just want to mention, if you are researching it on your app store, to please look up MTP library in your search. That will enable you to find us.
I use it all the time. I love it.
Oh yeah, I have it all the time now. Yes. So,
but now on to our 2021s.
Yes. So the first one we have to recommend is The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek, and this is on your TBR list. And I am also reading it. I will say I will give my opinion on it later so far.
Mhm.
But the story is about when a banished witch falls in love with a legendary trickster Loki, not a popular name at all. She risks the wrath of the gods in this debut novel that reimagines Norse mythology. And I'm probably butchering this. Angerboda's story, where most witches' tales end with a burning. As punishment from Odin for refusing to give him knowledge of the future, the fire leaves
Angerboda.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you say that. Injured and powerless. She is found by a man who reveals himself to be Loki, and her initial distrust of him grows reluctantly into a deep and abiding love. A retelling of the Norse legend from the viewpoint of a woman many may not know about. Great for readers of Madeline Miller's Cirque and the Marvel version of Loki, unsurprisingly. Which was a really good show, and I also recommend.
I mean, I've read a few pages and then I get sidetracked and all, but it's like it's a mythology retelling that always hooks me in, and it's Loki.
I will say so far it was a hard thing for me to get into at first, but I have read it, but it's been a little bit on my back burner just because I have quite a log. But I will say it's worth it, but you do have to get through that initial
beginning.
Yes.
All right, so a slow beginning.
That's just my opinion though, but you're more mythology than me. Yes, so
can't wait for it. Okay, so the next one we have is Of Woman and Salt by Gabriela Garcia. Again, surprise, surprise, I want to read this one as well. It's a sweeping debut about a daughter's faithful choice, a mother motivated by her own past, and a family legacy that begins in Cuba before either of them were born. Longtime immigrant Carmen still feels unsettled in Miami, with her frustrations exasperated by daughter Jeanette's addiction and her ongoing tensions with a mother who remained behind in Cuba. But it's Jeanette who returns to Cuba to sort out the family's troubled past. This is another one of those family sagas, which I love. It kind of spans two countries, so you get a little bit of history and a little bit of knowledge on both of them. So that's another plus for me. It's also been a book club pick on Good Morning America, and they spoke highly of it, as well as they're saying it's a good book club pick. So if your book club's looking for a good book, this may be one to try.
Sounds good, actually. It's out now, or?
It is out now.
Oh, okay, great.
The next one is How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Cherry Jones.
We're not having great with all these names, are we?
Lala must deal with a chain of events that have terrible consequences when her petty criminal husband is interrupted in his attempt to rob one of the mansions in their paradise home of Baxter Beach, Barbados. Anyone I know who's read this has had wonderful things to say about it. It was kind of like a sleeper debut.
Sounds kind of like a beach read.
Then people started finding out about it. So, based on everyone else's recommendations, I would say let's give it a go.
And on that same note, I've actually seen this title a lot, but I haven't read it, but I've heard it mentioned a whole lot. The next debut author we want to recommend is Daniel Monitz, and he wrote Milk, Blood, Heat. And it's a short story collection set among the cities and suburbs of Florida. Each story in Milk, Blood, Heat delves into the extraordinary worlds of young girls, women, and men who find themselves confronted by extraordinary moments of personal reckoning. These intimate portraits of people and relationships scour and soothe and blast a light on the nature of family, faith, forgiveness, consumption, and what we may or may not owe one another. Wow, what a description.
Well, I like short story collections sometimes when you want to just have, pick up here and there, something to read. You want to read it a little complete and then come back to it at a later time.
Right.
And this one, like I said, can highly recommend it. So it could be a possibility.
Hey, go for it.
All right. Next, we move on to Dark Horses by Susan Mihalik. And originally, this was not on my TBR list, but then I started reading about it, and the Olympics have just been out. So it piqued my interest even more.
I feel like this video could also be called What's on Christine's TBR list?
Everything. 15-year-old equestrian prodigy Rowan Montgomery has only ever known two worlds, inside the riding arena and outside of it. Both, for as long as she can remember, have been ruled by her father, who demands strict obedience in all areas of her life. The warped power dynamic of coach and rider extends far beyond the stables, and Rowan's relationship with her father has long been inappropriate. She has been able to compartmentalize that dark aspect of her life, ruthlessly focusing on her ambitions as a rider heading for the Olympics. However, her developing relationship with Will Howard, a boy her own age, gives her strength as she finally faces the need to free herself from her father. And like I said, we just had the Olympics.
Right.
There's been a lot of talk about all the scandals with the coaches
Right.
and the athletes, and it just kind of,
And I know their personal health has been brought up a lot
personal health and
lately.
their mental health. So it made me say this might be one for me to add.
All
It
right.
depends if I get through my Dark Vanessa, and it's tragedy.
I mean, there's so many other books to read.
All right. So then next we have The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Delilah Harris.
I think it's Dalia.
Dalia
Yeah.
Harris. Okay. Two of my favorite movies. Get Out meets The Devil Wears Prada.
Yes.
In this debut about the tension that unfurls when two young Black women meet against the starkly white backdrop of New York City book publishing. 26-year-old editorial assistant Nella Rogers is tired of being the only Black employee at Wagner Books. She's thrilled when Harlem-born and bred Hazel starts working in the cubicle beside hers. A string of uncomfortable events elevates Hazel to office darling, and Nella is left in the dust. Then the notes begin to appear on Nella's desk. Leave Wagner now. A thriller with sly social commentary that is perfect for anyone who has ever felt manipulated, threatened, or overlooked in the workplace. The Other Black Girl will keep you on the edge of your seat until that very last twist.
Since you mentioned Get Out, I just wanted the end of the note to just say Get Out.
Yes. But again, it sounds like a wonderful thriller. Got,
I kind of want to read it now, to be honest.
Okay, so we'll add that one to your TBR
Oh
list.
gosh.
You let me know if it's good, Amanda. I'll add it
I
to the
will,
bottom
and then
of
maybe
mine.
the end of the year when we do our recap reads, we'll see how that made out. So the next debut author we want to recommend is Honoré Fanon Jeffers. It is currently on order. It is coming out on the 24th. Not to say that it'll be here, but it's coming out. And the title is The Love Songs of W.E. Du Bois. And it is a 2020 National Book Award nominee. She is a 2020 National Book Award nominated poet. It is her first fiction novel, and the description is: this epic novel follows a young Black woman as she investigates generations of her family's tragedy and joy in a small Georgia town called Chickasetta.
I have heard that it is also a novel in verse, which is different than a book of poems.
Right.
So the whole book is told in verse, which is just a different experience reading.
I like that.
Hence the reason why I am considering reading it when it comes in. Obviously, it goes down. I have other things on the list, but I love novels in verse. They're just such a nice, light, easy read when they're well done. So.
And unsurprisingly, it's on your TBR list. I know. I feel like we're gonna have to link to your TBR list
one of these days. Yes, I think
we might have to. And the next one we want to recommend is a book I actually have seen a lot because of the cover, and Christine has read it. It's called Black Buck by Mateo. Oh my lord, Christine. Escobar. Christine is now reading all the last names. Darren lives in a Bed-Stuy brownstone.
That's spelled wrong. Bed-Stuy.
Oh, sorry, Bed-Stuy brownstone with his mother, content working at Starbucks in the lobby of a midtown office building, hanging out with his girlfriend Soroya, and eating his mother's home-cooked meals. A chance encounter with Rhett Daniels, CEO of Summon, probably butchering that, someone. NYC's hottest tech startup results in an exclusive invitation for Darren to join an elite sales team on the 36th floor. On the 36th floor. Yeah, I'm saying that right. As the only Black person in the company, it's been that kind of day. As the only Black person in the company, Darren reimagines himself as Buck, a ruthless salesman unrecognizable to his friends and family. When things turn tragic at home, Buck begins to hatch a plan to help young people of color infiltrate America's sales force, setting off a chain of events that changes the game. Black Buck is a humorous look at America's workforce and explores ambition and race.
Yeah, I actually had an advanced reader's copy of this, so I
Okay.
read this a while ago. And it was a fun, he was humorous, but it did
Mhm.
have that social commentary. So it
Yeah.
had that little dark humor, which I like. It's
I
fun
like.
to read.
I will say I like the cover of it a lot.
Mhm.
It's just that coffee cup.
It's a coffee cup.
Yes.
And it was a fun book. And
Nice.
what I liked about it too is our protagonist is a male. And we don't see that in a lot of books that seem to be on the hot lists.
Oh, yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
it was an enjoyable read and listen. I also listened to it. That's how I do actually learn how to spell, like pronounce some of these authors' names and characters' names because I listen to it and you hear it over and over.
Yes.
So
Which has been half the battle in this video.
absolutely. So now we've talked about this book previously. As a matter of
Numerous
fact,
times.
just last month, it was part of our summer reads. But I just want to mention once again, because it is on all of the debut lists, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. We've both read it. We both love it.
Love it.
I'm going to give it's a quick synopsis. It goes back and forth between present day and 18th century London. In 18th century London, we have an apothecarist who actually sells well-disguised poisons to use against oppressive men in women's lives. And then it goes forward to present day where she found a bottle and she's investigating and finding out the tale. And eventually the two stories kind of meet up. If you need to hear a little bit more about it, you can always look at our July summer reads.
And if you're also looking for a great book club pick, I actually think this would work really well because it goes into two different timelines.
Mhm.
One woman is trying to find out this woman's history, and then you see this woman's history.
Yes.
It's very interesting. There's a little element of witchcraft in it if you like that kind of thing.
Yes.
I love that kind of thing, so that's for me.
And it goes back and forth, alternates between the viewpoints of the present day protagonist and the past protagonist.
Yes.
It's a wonderful historical fiction read. It's also a great audio. I listened to it. It's available on Hoopla.
Yes.
So anything that we've mentioned that's available on Hoopla with your library card, you can download. There's no waits, no holds. You want to listen to that book, you download it up to 10 per month. And
it's a great service, and we highly recommend this book if you want to use one of your checkouts for it.
Yes.
It's a good one.
So that's our picks for the debut authors from 2020 that you may have missed, and ones from 2021 that you may want to look into. Some of these authors, they may not get as much publicity as the bestsellers, but they have excellent work. So we recommend them.
And they're just getting started.
Yes.
Yes.
So join us next month. I believe we will be discussing some banned books.
Yes.
Next month.
Might be banned books month.
Yes, because it's banned books month.
Exactly.
We'll see you then. That's about it.
All right. Take care.
Take care.